Electricity bills are soaring, and Quebec's small businesses are feeling the heat. From bistros to dépanneurs, many are reporting hikes of thousands of dollars. The opposition says the CAQ government's energy mismanagement is to blame. We're joined now by Kelley from the Quebec Liberal Party and the official opposition critic for energy. Greg, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Elias.
So listen, when it comes to energy and hydro rates, I've heard the premier say, listen, we're not going to increase those bills. We're going to cap it at X percent. I think it was 3%. So, as a regular Joe paying my home hydro bill, I don't know if I've noticed it, but it certainly seems here that actually what's happened is the Quebec government has offloaded those increases to small business. Tell us the story here.
Absolutely. So in 2018, when the CAQ took power, they were swimming in a surplus of electricity. And they decided, well, we're going to get rid of that as quickly as possible. Instead of slowly managing our transition, we're going to sell that electricity to New York, and we're going to give it to companies like Northvolt. So they really liquidated our surpluses, like they did with our budget surpluses. Mm-hmm. And then they arrived at a point saying, oh my gosh, we have no more electricity, for all these companies are lining up to transition to cleaner energy. And they went to Hydro-Quebec and said, well, we need more energy. Hydro said, fine, we'll come up with a plan. And they did. And it will cost us $150 billion between here and 2035 to build all these new wind, solar, and potential hydro dam projects. And well, who's going to pay for that? So the government's keeping the residential tariffs at 3%, and they turned over to the small, medium businesses. And it's them who are going to foot the bill. Those small, the restaurants in your local village, like you said, the bistros, the small businesses in the industrial sectors all across the island of Montreal and Quebec. Those, small businesses are going to have to foot the bill. And this morning there was a study they predict it's going to cost, and this is a very rough estimate for them, a conservative one as they called it, $3 billion in electricity rates for them over 10 years. It's a huge increase. And in the end of the day, what happens if that's the case is that they're going to have to offload those costs to consumers. So this bill is highly inflationary too. It's really tough for our small and local businesses. And again, it's all because the CAQ decided to politicize the residential electricity rates, hold that power, and there are serious consequences for our economy.
So I just want to be clear, the increases to the small business rates, has that actually happened so far, or it will happen?
It has happened, and it's going to get worse. And that's what they're sounding the alarm about. There's a study that came out this morning after they looked at all these new amendments that the government proposed to this bill that will be closed by the end of this week using, closure. There's been a bunch of amendments that have been tabled, and they looked at it and said, this is really aiming us, that we're going to be the ones who are going to have to pay for all these new projects, and they're sounding the alarm, and I understand why.
What's the percentage hike that small businesses have faced? So 3%, right, for household electricity. What has been the increase percentage-wise for small business?
It has gone up in the last couple of years. It's even been, to some cases, been up to an increase of like 5%. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that will continue, that it will be around 4 to 5%. That's what kind of Hydro-Quebec gave us. Mm-hmm. But that's all dependent, Elias, on that the government next year doesn't say, actually, electricity bills are a bit high. We're going to lower it to 2%. Or another party one day makes a promise and says, we'll do it at 1%. And then it becomes a race to make sure that the consumer and the residential side has the lowest bill possible. But then somebody has to pay for all these investments, right? And that's natural. And the government wants to make sure that Hydro-Quebec's return to the state is nice and juicy so we don't increase our deficits. So we're really caught in a tough position here. And I really think that it's due to the CAQ's mismanagement of our energy surpluses over the last couple of years. They didn't have a plan for it. If anything, the plan came after the fact. They signed those deals with the Americans, and that they gave those energy that was left over to companies like Northvolt and other companies that came here. There was no planning of it. It was just, let's liquidate this surplus as quickly as possible. And it's really putting us in a tough bind. It's putting hydro in a tough bind. It's putting our small, medium businesses in a tough bind. And our large industrial corporations are also in a tough bind too, because their bill's going up. They're being slapped with tariffs. It's really just a bill that came at a poor moment in a situation right now where we're facing a lot of challenges economically. And this is all on the CAQ's shoulders. This is all their fault. This is their third bill on energy. And it really is, you can find people on the environmental side, people on the economic side, people on the consumer side who will tell you this bill is no good.
When I think about energy leadership in the province, obviously I think about the people that run Hydro-Quebec, right? So I just want, thinking back, you brought up this, going back to 2018 here. So I'm thinking about Sophie Brochu and now Michael Sabia at the leadership at the helm at Hydro-Quebec. And I'm just wondering if both of those leaders, both of those CEOs were saying this type of thing to the CAC government, because of course Hydro-Quebec's, if you want to build more resources, Hydro-Quebec's got to build it. I mean, they know if you've got surpluses and where it's going to go. So I want to get into that here. Where does Hydro-Quebec and their leadership fall into this?
So my read is that there was definitely from Sophie Brochu when she said we can't make Quebec the Dollarama of electricity. That was a clear mise en garde to the government saying, hey, whoa, be cautious and prudent with our electricity, because even though we might have some surpluses, it's a precious resource and a strength of our economy. We all know she left, from what the rumors are, didn't get along very well with, the Minister of Energy at the time, Mr. Fitzgibbon, moved on to other things. And they hired Mr. Sabia. And there's no doubt, we all have tons of respect for Mr. Sabia. He was great with the case of Depot. We know all the things he did in the past when he ran Bell, et cetera, et cetera. You go down the list. He's a very well-respected businessman in the country. And I think he said, look, you want to keep your residential rates at 3%. You don't want it to go any higher. Fine, but there's a cost associated to that, especially since you're asking me to go ahead with all these massive projects to build more energy to feed our economy. You have to pay at the end of the day. Like it's fictional thinking on the government's part that they would be able to just cover this up in between elections. It's not the case. And now Hydro-Quebec is going ahead with projects, and the bills are coming in. They're going to borrow massive amounts of capital to do these projects. And just a reminder, Hydro-Quebec also lost its credit rating. They were downgraded as well in the last round, like the government of Quebec was. The two are definitely linked. So it's problematic, and like I said, I don't put this on Hydro's leadership. I think they're being asked to do things, and they're saying to the government, you want to have certain policies in place that, give a preferential to the residential side, okay, but you're doing that at a moment where we should probably be using the Régie de l'Énergie, which was put into place by the PQ in 2000 to depoliticize the entire tariff debate, have one independent body that decides what we need to charge everyone for, if we are making massive investments in transmission lines and in new energy producing projects. It was simple to have that instance there to make those decisions, whether they were popular or not. But now we don't have that. There's politics in our electricity rates, and that is not a good thing. And we did remove it for a reason, and we're seeing those reasons right now.
Greg, just to wrap up quickly here, do you think, is Quebec losing its advantage that we had, to attract data centers, to attract energy, really energy hog types of businesses that were attracted to Quebec? Have we lost our competitive advantage here?
There's no doubt that, if we think of artificial intelligence and all of the data centers for all types of businesses, and there's a lot of very good Quebec companies, to remind everyone out there, Hydro-Quebec wants nothing to do with these data centers. They take up too much energy. There's no forward thinking on those, industries that are emerging across North America. It's really troubling and worrisome in my point of view. And we are losing our advantage. If you start looking at the numbers, still we have a very low rate. But in the United States, due to natural gas, there are jurisdictions where their electricity rates, the industrial side, and for businesses, it's going down. We're meeting more and more competition in the United States right now on that question of energy rates. And there's, of course, with the Trump tariffs, for some industries like steel, we have steel producers here in the province. Problematic. They have to think, how can we be competitive with the Americans at this point in time? Yeah. So I am very worried that we're losing that competitive advantage that we've had. And we have to be very smart in the moves that are coming, because everyone needs more energy in North America. That's true. But how can we build the energy at the best and lowest cost possible? And I don't think we're having that debate right now.
Greg, got to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on.
No problem, Elias. Have a good day.
Greg Kelley is the Liberals' opposition critic for energy, and the Liberal M&A, of course, for Jacques Cartier.